the Check-in Report. If you like the content, subscribe to the channel today.
Welcome to the Check-in Report. Today's topic, we have rapper Dee-1 from Louisiana, Christian rapper, calling out Meek Mills, Rick Ross, and Jim Jones for pushing poison into the youth, pushing, violence and debauchery to the youth. We're here to talk about it. I am your host, True and Livin, and this is the Check-in Report. So, right off the bat, if you don't know, a lot of people might not know who this rapper is. His name is Dee-1. He's from the Louisiana area, New Orleans, and he is a Christian rapper. He raps about, being a man of the cloth, and I think that's a noble thing, because there's not a lot of rappers that are of the faith, promoting that, letting it be known, pushing that message in their music. So I salute him for doing that. But he called out Meek Mills, Rick Ross, and Jim Jones for the new video that came out. If you don't know, Meek Mills and Rick Ross put out a video. The name of the video was Lyrical Easy, where we're going to get into the lyrics and we're going to get into the video of Dee-1 breaking it down and the problem he had. And his ultimate issue, I believe his ultimate issue is with not Jim Jones, it's with Meek Mills. His ultimate issue is with Meek Mills, because he's confused on how a man that is preaching prison reform, a man that is preaching for, advocating for, prisoners to have a second chance, a lighter sentence, for, things to be changed in the prison, the industrial prison system. He's, advocating these things almost like he's almost like a activist of this thing, but he's sitting on new tracks. He's rapping on new tracks, ultimate violence, deleting people and sending, hitters to commit a crime. And Dee-1 ultimately has a problem with that, and I have to agree. Meek Mills is a hypocrite. He's the same guy boo-hooing, crying when his judge threw him in the slammer for popping a willy, right? And he was preaching prison reform. He was preaching all these things as an activist. But then he gets on tracks and he's rapping about violence. He's rapping about paying off a hitter. He's rapping about paying off this shooter. Get it together, man. If you're preaching prison reform, if you're preaching, men having a second chance, men, having a second chance at life, men having a lighter sentence for mistakes they may have made when they were younger, then maybe you should change up your rapping style. Maybe you should change up your message. But he wants to still push the poison. He got into Rick Ross as well, and the lyrics. And we're gonna break down Meek Mill's lyrics. So ultimately, we will be talking about Meek Mills, Rick Ross, and Jim Jones. We cannot forget about Mr. Capo status, the senior citizen gangster. They're all senior citizens, if we're being honest. Like, none of these dudes are outside. None of these dudes are active. None of these dudes are, are doing these things that they're rapping about, but they're still pushing the poison into the communities, into the urban environments, into the projects where the crime does happen, where people do, lose their life, or people do get hurt. People do go to the jails and into the prison industrial system. So we have to talk about that. So ultimately, Jim Jones, I got a picture of Jim Jones. He has to be added into this whole mix here. He has to be added into the whole thing here. But ultimately, I think what Dee-1 said was noble. What he said was righteous, and I think what he said needed to be said, because a lot of these rappers are continually pushing the poison into our communities, into these urban environments. You know, they're not the ones in the trenches. Meek Mills is not in the trenches of Philly. Rick Ross is not in the trenches of Dayton County or wherever he's from. Jim Jones is not in the trenches of Harlem. All of these men, I could break it down. Jim Jones, he lives in a nice house in New Jersey. Meek Mills, he probably lives on the nice side of Philly, big mansion. Rick Ross, he lives in a beautiful community in Georgia with a big house. I mean, I think all of you have seen this house before. He talks about it all the time. But ultimately, these men are pushing poison into the community. So I want to get into Dee-1's thoughts and what he said ultimately. I think that's of critical importance that we talk about what he said, because I think what he said, it needed to be said, and it was a powerful message that, you know, ultimately needed to be brought to the forefront. And I'm wishing and I'm hoping that more people talk about what Dee-1 said. I think Dee-1 has a message, and he gave it to the mainstream hip hop. It's time to stop pushing the poison. It's time to do better. It's time to be a better role model for the urban youth. Let's play his thoughts.
Could do better, brother. I love you too much. I love you too much to not be honest with you. Rick Ross, you could do better, brother. Meek Mill, you could do better, brother. I love you too much not to be honest with you. Are you the face of prison reform? Cause are you the face of prison reform? Or are you sitting here on your new song with Ross talking about getting somebody murked and shot at the red light?
Now, if you don't know, he's talking about the lyric in the song that I spoke about, Lyrical Easy. That's the name of the song, where Meek Mills talks about getting someone clapped. This is the same man preaching about prison reform. This is the same man preaching for prisoners to get a lighter sentence, for, you know, men to have a second chance at life. But here he is rapping about things that will get you thrown in prison for life. Rapping about things that will, you know, have the judge, you know, give you the highest sentence football numbers ultimately, and throw away the key for your whole life. This is what he's pushing into the youth. Let's continue.
Which one is it, bro? Which one is it, bro? Because I did a shoe giveaway in my city and gave out 1,300 pairs of your shoes because they said reform underneath them. And I love that you partnered with a major shoe company and you out here pushing prison reform. But now I got to sit here like, man, this man glorifying getting people killed as of a week ago. Like, what did
Wow. So pretty much Dee-1, he's calling him out. He's calling out all of these rappers that are, you know, and we see this. We see, you know, rappers, you know, they want to be activists. They want to protest. They want to talk about prison reform. They want to do all of these things. But they're the main culprits, pushing the poison into the community, pushing that algorithm of violence. They're not rapping about affluent communities and, you know, people going to school, and, you know, people being able to walk the women and children being able to walk the communities safe and sound. They're talking about getting someone clapped, getting someone hurt, telling someone to do a crime that will ultimately get them thrown in jail. That's what he's rapping about. Meek Mills and Rick Ross there. And then you got the senior citizen Jim Jones, the senior citizen gangster, Trey, Billy, right? He's ultimately co-signing them because he told them to come out to Harlem. We're gonna post up in front of this store that's closed where they got the gate down. We're gonna act like we're outside. We're gonna act like we're active. When in reality, those three men, they went back to their beautiful homes in their gated communities, safe and sound. Not a crime in sight in their communities, but they're pushing the violence to the urban youth. They're pushing, back in the day, they used to say, oh, the record companies, they're pushing it. They're making these rappers do that. I have to disagree. I think it's the rappers pushing it. Rick Ross is at a point in his career where he's a boss, man. He don't need a Def Jam or a major distribution. He's a boss now. Meek Mills, he's been in the game over 10 years. These guys are bosses now. Jim Jones. Stop. We can't no longer blame the record industry. Oh, it's some, white man that owns the record label that's pushing this agenda. No, it's these rappers pushing this agenda, pushing this algorithm of violence into your communities. And Dee-1, he's speaking of it. He's had enough. He's tired of the hypocrisy. Let's continue.
Doing, bro. Lil Snoop really got killed. That broke your heart. You wear him around your neck. Why are you glorifying the same thing? The rap game, hip hop industry is great at. Shout
out to Churches. I see you checked in. Shout out to Churches.
Cooking up some delicious poison. I don't call you out because I
see. He said that. He said exactly what I've been saying. Cooking up delicious poison, because Dee-1, he realizes that is all Meek Mills and Rick Ross is doing. All they are doing is pushing poison to young men in the community that will ultimately commit these crimes and throw them away in jail for life. And he's speaking about the hypocrisy. The fact that Meek Mills is up there dancing, bamboozling around, talking about getting someone clapped, talking about getting someone whacked. But ultimately, he wants to go meet up with the governor of Pennsylvania and talk about prison reform. It's absolutely ridiculous. Get it together. It's time to do better. And I agree with Dee-1.
I got a problem with you, man. Like, I wish we could go get lunch right now, me and any of them. I love you too much. Jim Jones, you could do better, brother.
I'll run it back one more time.
I love you too much. I love you too much to not be honest with you. Rick Ross, you could do better, brother. Meek Mill.
Shout out to Trey Porter. I see you checked in.
You could do better, brother. I love you too much not to be honest with you. Are you the face of prison reform? Cause are you the face of prison reform? Or are you sitting here on your new song with Ross talking about getting somebody murked?
And hold on, let me just for 1 second, we're gonna get back to this video, but I don't want to deviate too much, but I do want to get to the lyric, right? So let me just get to the lyric real quick, because I think that's of critical importance that we get to the lyric. Now, this is the lyric in question where Meek Mills was babbling, right? He was babbling about getting someone whacked. Keep in mind, this is the same man preaching about prison reform. Yeah, prisoners need to get a lighter sentence, and we need to change the condition, and he's doing all this thing in terms of prison reform. But this is what he's rapping. On my mind, I've been up all night. 2 bad chicks trying to F all night. Heard we was in a club. He had to duck all night. I told him, catch him at the let out. Shoot his truck on sight. That's what these guys are pushing. This if you don't know, this is from the track that Meek Mills and Ross just dropped. It's called The Lyrical Easy. It's going to be on their new album coming out very soon. And I'm ultimately on Dee-1's side, because ultimately you have these guys pushing this algorithm of violence to young men. That's the demographic. Let's be honest here. Rick Ross ain't active. Meek Mills ain't active. Jim Jones ain't active. These dudes go back to their affluent communities. They probably, go to Miss Nancy house, the white neighbor, have a glass of lemonade, talk to little Timmy on his big wheel. They probably wave at the police driving around the community, making sure they keep colored folk out. That's the type of communities that these dudes live in. But they're in a studio pushing the poison to the young youth, when they could be pushing something positive, pushing a better message, pushing a message that could get people up out of that condition, preaching a message that could fix the community ultimately. But they are choosing, and just like I said, we have to stop blaming the white man in the sky. The white it's the white CEO. It's the white business partner. It's the white man who owns the label. No, this is the black rapper that has sold out the community. This is the black rapper that is still selling poison to the community. This is the black rapper that is trying to bring the black community down. And Dee-1 is calling it out. He's tired of the nonsense. He's tired of the hypocrisy. Because Meek Mills is, he has this whole holier than thou attitude now. Because I guess Mike Rubin got him bunny hopping around tennis courts. He's getting hugged from the front and the back at these little these weirdo parties that he's throwing, and he thinks he's better than the black community. He thinks he can, he can pretty much do whatever. He think in that Kodak story, he was downplaying Kodak and make it seem like Kodak was just filth from the hood. He think he's better than the black neighborhood now. So now we have to call him out. We have to call him out, man. But let's get back to Dee-1 and his thoughts. I believe there's another portion of that I have to play, that we have to get into. But I did want to show you guys that lyric, because I thought that lyric was, I thought that lyric was crazy. Because you're the same guy pushing this prison reform thing, and it's like, dog, like, what is it? Is it prison reform? Or is it, bang, bang, shoot 'em up, die slow? Like, what is it? Is it, is it I'm a activist from Philadelphia, or I'm a goon from Philadelphia? What is it? You can't play two sides. Let's
continue. Shot at the red light. Which one is it, bro? Which one is it, bro? Because I did a shoe giveaway in my city and gave out 1,300 pairs of your shoes because they said reform underneath them. And I loved it. You partnered with a major shoe company and you out here pushing prison reform. But now I got to sit here like, man, this man glorifying getting people killed as of a week ago. Like, what are you doing, bro? Lil Snoop really got killed. That broke your heart. You wear him around your neck. Why are you glorifying the same thing? The rap game, hip-hop industry is great at cooking up some delicious poison. I don't call you out because I got a problem with you, man. Like, I wish we could go get lunch right now, me and any of them. I love you too much. Jim Jones, you could do better.
Let me get to the second. Let me get to the second clip.
Honest with you.
There you go.
That's what it is, bro.
Yeah.
And so if anybody feel bad about being called out, it's like let's talk. Let's talk about it and let's just figure out what we.
And I think that's noble of him. I think that's noble of him to say, let's talk. You may not like what I said about you. You may feel like I went too hard. You may feel like, I'm ultimately calling you out, but let's talk. And I think that's noble. I think Dee-1 should sit down with a Meek Mills. He should sit down with a Ross, because, you're ultimately pushing the poison, and Dee-1 is trying to, give an alternative to that. He's trying to say, let's stop pushing this poison in our community. And I agree with him. These dudes are absolute hypocrites.
We can do better. But at the end of the day, guess what's not changing? The word of God ain't changing.
Okay.
There's death and life in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18 and 21. That's not changing. And trying with this foolish argument that it's just entertainment. This ain't real. Mm-hmm. How many more people gotta die in the hood, man? How many?
He's speaking facts right now, because he's speaking all facts right now, because ultimately, let's be honest here. They are pushing the poison. They are pushing the poison. And a lot of rappers throughout the history of, hip hop, in terms of gangster rap, they have hid behind the whole cloak of, this is entertainment. This is not meant to be serious. This is only entertainment. But in reality is, the kids that, commit these heinous crimes, the dudes that are in these gangs, the dudes that are active in the streets, they listen to this music. They're influenced by this music. This music turns them up. This is the algorithm of violence. This is the algorithm of violence that is happening in the neighborhoods, that is happening in the urban communities. And this is the backdrop. This is the soundtrack to a lot of gangsters in the hoods, and maybe it's time to change. Here you have two millionaires, Rick Ross. We can add Jim Jones in there too. Meek Mills, who have made millions off the genocide of black youth. Let's call it. I gotta call it like I see it. They have made millions off of that agenda. From the drug dealing raps to the gritty street raps of Meek Mills, to the gang activity and the gang promotion of a Jim Jones, They have made millions off the deletion of black male life. Let's call it how I see it. Let's talk about it. And it's up to them to change the narrative. And I salute Dee-1 for telling it how it is. I salute him for that. Let's play that. Let's get back to it.
People at the end of the day, lives got to get ruined and poisoned. And how many rappers got to get killed for us to be like, come on, man, when it's hip hop, it's a whole culture, and it's implied that this is autobiographical and this is not.
And he's talking about in terms of, you know, all the rappers that have, you know, that are gone, from the Pop Smokes to the P&B Rocks. You know what I mean? All the, you know, the Takeoffs, you know, all the rappers that we lost, the Biggies, the Tupacs, the Stack Bundles, all the rappers that we lost from gang violence, from street violence, from crime. It's time for us to move away from this agenda. It's time for us to find something new to rap about. Meek Mills and Rick Ross are far removed from that lifestyle. When was the last time you think Rick Ross really sat on a hot block in Florida? When was the last time do you think Meek Mills sat on a hot block in Philadelphia? When was the last time you seen Jim Jones active in the Bronx? It's been probably over 2 decades since these dudes was active doing the things that they were doing. And these dudes are millionaires now, still profiting off of the nonsense and the poison.
Non-fiction tales that people are telling. How much does that have to happen? So don't hit me with that. People just don't want to confront the reality of this.
Trey Porter says the contradiction is amazing. I agree. The contradiction is amazing. You know, they've been pushing Meek Mills. He's been pushing this nonsense forever. You know, he wants to be an activist of prison reform, and I don't believe it. I don't trust him, because you're out there pushing the poison to people on a daily basis. You don't have no poison. You know, he has no shame in his game. This is not in his music. He'll tell somebody, "Hey, man, I paid this person to do this hit. I paid this person to do this type of crime." But he wouldn't want that life for his kid. He wouldn't want that life for, you know, one of his family members. But it's okay for him to push it to the black youth in his community. It's crazy
stuff, man. To not be honest with you.
There you go.
That's what it is, bro.
Yep.
And so if anybody feel bad about being called out, it's like,
I'm gonna let this play again. Give me 1 second.
Let's talk about it, and let's just figure out what we can do better. But at the end of the day, guess what's not changing? The word of God ain't changing.
Okay.
There's death and life in the power of the tongue, Proverbs 18:21. That's not changing. And trying with this foolish argument that it's just entertainment, this ain't real. How many more people gotta die in the hood, man? How many people at the end of the day, lives gotta get ruined and poisoned, and how many rappers gotta get killed for us to be like, come on, man, when it's hip hop, it's a whole culture, and it's implied that this is autobiographical and this is non-fiction tales that people are telling. How much does that have to happen? So don't hit me with that. People just don't want to confront the reality of this stuff, man. To not be.
He's speaking all facts. I gotta agree with him. Now let's get into Meek Mills, because he was a little butthurt. He was a little butthurt because somebody called him on his BS. So let's read, you know, what he wrote on this post right here. This is what he said, because he's seen the interview. He's seen the thoughts, what Dee-1 had to say about him. He says, "Nah, we do everything, LOL." He thinks it's funny. He thinks it's comical that this man called him out and that this man was pretty much speaking the truth on him. He finds it comical right now, right? "Nah, we do everything, LOL. I was rapping this way when I became the face of reform. This how I get there. Y'all forgot that fact." He thinks, see, this is the problem with Meek Mills, man. He think he can rap about violence, hard criminal activity, things that will get him thrown in prison, talking about getting someone whacked, getting someone clapped, but then, run with the mayor, hold hands with the mayor on some kumbaya. No, Meek Mill, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't get on a record, talk about getting someone whacked, getting someone clapped, and then run with the mayor and want to hold hands and we shall overcome. No, that's dead. That's out. That's out. That is out. Because that's ultimately what he wants to do. He wants to rap all this, beating his chest. I'm a top goon from Philly. All this nonsense, shoot him up, bang, bang. And then he wants to run run around with the governor of Pennsylvania, hold hands in front of the prison industrial system. We shall overcome. No, that's out. And I salute Dee-1 for calling out the BS, for calling out the nonsense. Because in essence, you have three. You have three senior citizens still pushing poison, still thinking that it's funny. Like, when you look at certain rappers, right? Let me break this down for a little bit. And y'all gotta forgive me. I'm dealing with a cold here, so. But you gotta look at other rappers. Look at like a Nas. Look at a Jay-Z. These men are not rapping about, standing on a corner selling nicks and dimes. These men are not rapping about, paying off some dude to do a hit for them, to get somebody clapped. These dudes are rapping like grown men, because I seen Joe Budden. He was adamant talking about Drake rapping like a kid, rapping like a, like a 2-year-old, rapping with the young dudes. Why isn't Joe Budden calling these dudes out? Why isn't he calling out Meek Mills and Rick Ross for rapping about stuff that they don't live anymore? Stuff that they're not tapped into anymore. These dudes live in gated communities, pushing the poison into the black youth. And it's disgusting. All of them are senior citizens. All three of them. Now, I have this article pulled up. This is rapper Meek Mills, right? No profit fight for justice. I want to help and make a change. They was doing an article on Mr. Meek Mills about, the prison reform thing. Rapper Meek Mills has said Rapper Meek Mill said his time under probation almost kept him from having a fair shot at life that the average young black man should have. Now, with the non-profit organization Reform Alliance, which he co-chairs, the singer said he wants to help and make a change for others in similar situations. Now, let me ask you this, right? Walk with me for a second, right? How can you make a change, Meek Mills, when you're on a record telling black men to commit hits on one another? Talking about you're gonna get somebody clapped at the. Let me pull up the lyric. Hold on. Because this is what he said. This is what he said verbatim. I'm not a ventriloquist. This is what he said verbatim. This is what he said. Let's read it one more time. Hold on. Let me pull up the lyric. We got time today. It's shine time. Now let's read this lyric by way of Meek Mill. This came out his mouth, right? This is the same guy talking about prison reform. I want black men to have a second chance. I want black men to have a better chance at life. I want, something to be done with the prison industrial system. This is the same person. Deletion on my mind. I'm not going to say that word. I've been up all night. 2 bad chicks trying to F all night. Heard we was in the club. He had to duck all night. I told him catch him at the let out. Shoot his truck on sight. How is that helping the prison reform fight? How is that helping? You talking about activity that's going to get black men thrown in jail. How is that helping, Meek Mills? You are on this Lyrical Easy record with Rick Ross, and I'm sure when the album comes out, it's going to be way more, lyrics about, black men on black men crime, people, you sending out hits, notice how he's sending out the hits. He's not doing none of it. He's not, he's in the house somewhere, right? Say, and it's kind of crazy, he's talking about sending somebody to do something, just like he's telling somebody to do something on a record. He's not actually doing it. He's in the crib chilling. He's in a gated community eating Greek yogurt, right? He's in a gated community eating Greek yogurt with his middle-aged white neighbors, having a good old time. But he's pushing the poison to the black youth. He's pushing the nonsense to the black youth. He's pushing the criminal aspect to the black youth and finding it okay. We have to talk about it. Now, let me take this lyric down for 1 second. And we have to get into another senior citizen, gangster, Mr. Jim Jones. Capo status, right? Give me a second. I'm dealing with a cold. So just give me a second, y'all. We got to talk about Mr. Capo status here, because he did call out Jim Jones. And this is another dude that's honestly, Jim Jones is going through a midlife crisis, man. He's still trying to promote, gang activity at his big age. The man is almost 50. Jim Jones is almost 50 years old. And just to put that in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, this man is almost a half a century old, right? Half a century old. Still talking about gang activity, still talking about 9 Trey, I'm Billy, yada, yada, yada. Why aren't you giving these black youth in the community a better role model? What Dee-1 said is real. Why aren't these guys better? I know they're not the best of rappers. I know that they're not the most, recordable people. Like these dudes are not, all of these dudes are like studio gangsters. Let's be real. I mean, a lot of them, the stories on these dudes are documented. I mean, from Rick Ross to his criminal past, and him lying about being some big drug dealer, him being a CO. That's well documented. From Jim Jones, allegedly being a 9 Trey, and all of this stuff, and they say that he may be a cooperator. He may have snitched on some people, and everybody's still wondering what happened with that whole 6ix9ine case, where he was on a wiretap with Mel Matrix, talking about committing a hit on 6ix9ine. Why didn't he go to jail? A lot of people have talked about that. The most authentic dude probably in this whole thing is Meek Mills. In Meek Mills, all 3 of these men are in my opinion, in my humble opinion, all 3 of these men are in a midlife crisis. It's time to wake up. Trey Porter, what you're saying is 110% true. You're right. They don't care. You're right. Because ultimately, what you're saying is 100% right. Because ultimately, it's not their kids. It's not their kids in the streets. It's not their kids, committing these crimes. It's not their kids, in these gangs. It's not their kids doing these things. It's just them. It's them on a record. You know what I mean? They sell a few records. And keep in mind, none of these dudes are selling records. They selling out the black community for a meager 70,000 first week, a meager 80,000 first week, if that, probably close to 30,000 first week. They selling out the black community for that. And ultimately, it's not their children. It's not their children committing these crimes. It's not their children and committing these heinous acts of crimes. It's it's somebody else's child. And ultimately, These dudes is all sellouts, and I believe they're all going through a midlife crisis, dog. Jim Jones, he's going through a midlife crisis. He's still trying to, make us believe that he's some big bad Billy, some big bad Billy, some super gang member. Like, dog, you're almost a half a century old. Sit down. Go take care of your grandkids, man. And I even seen he's trying to do a MOB part 2. But if anybody remember, MOB was the first group he made. Members of Bird Gang, where he had Stack Bundles, he had Mel Matrix, he had Max B. He had all those dudes on one label, and he messed that up, because he wanted to shine. He wanted to be he wanted to be Michael Jackson of the group. He thought he had the most talent, when in reality, he had dudes on that label that was way more talented than him. You know what I mean? Max B, more talented than Jim Jones. Stack Bundles, more talented than Jim Jones. But he wanted to be the star. He wanted to be the Beyonce of that group. And he messed that whole group up. You know what I mean? He didn't put those. He had Stack Bundles, respectfully. He had Stack Bundles still, running back to the hood, parking his Porsche in front of the projects. He had Max B allegedly out there committing, robberies because he wasn't feeding these dudes. He wasn't taking care of these dudes, and that whole group imploded. And now he's trying to do a Members of Bird Gang Part 2. We don't care, Jim Jones. You washed. You had your time in the sun. Let the young dudes eat. Let the young dudes coming up eat. I agree, Trey Porter. I agree. Well-paid tap dancers. That's all they are. They're just tap dancers, tapping to the beat. Whatever that could sell them a little bit of meager records. Like, come on. Nobody's buying a Jim Jones record in 2023. Nobody's buying a Meek Mill's Rick Ross record in 2023. All of these dudes, they had their time in the sun. It's over for them. But they're still pushing the poison to the youth. They can be pushing positivity. Like, look at Jay-Z. Look at the last album Jay-Z put out with the 444, right? Jay-Z is talking about ownership, generational wealth, right? Making good investments, right? Not cheating on a woman that's good for you. He's talking about grown man things. That's what Jay-Z is rapping about in 2023. Look at Nas. Nas is rapping about investments. Nas is rapping about life. Right? Rapping about, living it abundantly. Cherishing the moments. They're rapping about grown man things. Look at what Meek Mills and Rick Ross and Jim Jones is rapping about. They still rapping about getting someone clapped at the light. Rapping about getting someone clapped at the let out at a club. It's disgusting. When will these men grow up? Get out of your midlife crisis, Jim Jones. Get out of your midlife crisis, Rick Ross. Get out of your midlife crisis, Meek Mills. Get out of your midlife crisis. You are not active anymore. These men literally, all three of them, they live in gated communities. They're probably the only black person that live in their community. Literally, they're probably the only black person that live in their community. They probably sit on the front porch with Miss Sally. Sit on the front porch with Miss Sally and have a glass of lemonade. Every Sunday morning. Hey, Jim Jones. Hey, Rick Ross. Can little Timmy come over to play Xbox with your son? That's the type of communities these dudes live in. You said Fonte too. Yeah, shout out to Fonte from Little Brother, right? Yeah. Fonte, they rap about grown man bars. Black Thought, another one. Grown man bars. You know what I mean? There's a few rappers. J. Cole, grown man bars. They rap about stuff that's grown man activities. Why are these three dudes that are washed up? Let's be honest, they all washed up. All three of them. Rick Ross, Meek Mills, Jim Jones, they're all washed, right? Why are they still rapping in their midlife crisis? Grow up. Rap about something that's going to be positive for the black community. Rap about something that's going to be, that's going to uplift the black community. And Jay-Z, he said it in an interview that, he can't, if he puts out another album, it's got to be something that's for a greater purpose. It's not going to just be for, I'm just going to put out an album just to put out an album. That's what these dudes are doing. They're just putting out albums just to put out albums. Just to push the new poison, push the new nonsense, push the new, agenda. They should be making music that's going to serve a general purpose, man. Yeah, let's get some mature rap. You talking about it, Trey Porter. I agree. Where's the mature rap? Where's the maturity in hip hop? 50 years of hip hop, ladies and gentlemen. 50 years of hip hop. And we got a couple dudes still in the midlife crisis. Meek Mills is in a midlife crisis right now. He's stuck. He trying to get a hit from Drake. Drake not returning his calls back, Cause he's cold right now. Meek Mills is cold. Nobody's working with Meek Mills right now. He had to run to Rick Ross, to get a little heat off of Rick Ross. Rick Ross, he kind of hot on the net right now. He's been beefing with Envy. Rick Ross, he got a little bit of a presence online. He had to run to Rick Ross to get a little bit of heat, cause nobody else is touching him. He's cold on the streets right now. The young dudes ain't listening to Meek Mills right now. They don't care what he's talking about. They don't care what the nonsense he's trying to shovel them. It's the new guy. They're listening to Dirk. They're listening to NBA Youngboy. You know what I mean? They're listening to the young dudes that's running rap now. They don't care about what Meek Mills is talking about. Meek Mills is washed in these streets in terms of rap. He better get on the tennis court and bunny hop with Michael Rubin. He better go to a all-white party that Michael Rubin is throwing and get hugged from the back and the front and get turned into an Oreo, you know what I mean? A Bizarro Oreo cookie with the black in the middle. He's cold on the streets. Nobody wants to hear from him. And ultimately, y'all have to excuse me just a little bit because I am dealing with a cold. But ultimately, we need more maturity in rap. Dee-1, I agree with him. I totally commend what he was saying. I think ultimately what he said was real. It was true. And, I hope that the message that he spoke about, I hope that a lot of people take note to what he was saying. And I hope that the message gets out there. Trey Porter says, Little Brother has been about mature rap from the start. One of my favorite groups. I agree. They have been. Little Brother was always on that conscious tip. Little Brother, they always kept it real in their music. They never, they never tried to compromise. Even when they might have did like the commercial thing, they never went all the way. They stayed true to themselves. Like I remember when they had that record when I think they had a record with like Lil Wayne, and even when they did the record with Lil Wayne, they still stayed true to themselves. Even when they did the record with Kanye West, they stayed true to themselves. They never was like, oh, we're gonna flip the script. We're gonna stay Little Brother. We're gonna stay in our lane. We're gonna we're gonna be true to who we are, and that's commendable. Any artist that does that, that's commendable. Like look at Meek Mills and look at like Jim Jones. Like these dudes are rapping about lives that they don't live. They don't rap. They rapping about lives that they don't live. Jim Jones come on. Jim Jones lives in a gated community in New Jersey. Rick Ross lives in a gated community in Georgia. Meek Mills lives in a gated community in whatever community he lives in. These men are not active. These men, they go to their communities, they wave at the police. They may even stop with the police and have a long conversation. Hey, yeah, you was patrolling the neighborhood. You see anybody near my house today? No, Mr. Ross, we didn't see nobody. No, they don't even call him Mr. Ross. They call him his legal last name. Yeah, Mr. Whatever. I forgot what Rick Ross' last name is, but yeah, we patrolled your house earlier. There's nobody over there. You should be safe. We kept the colored folk out and we closed the gate. That's what happens in these communities that these rappers are from. But then they go in a studio and then they become studio gangsters and push that poison to the black youth, push that poison to the urban communities, push that poison to the kids that are in those situations, and to a kid that's living that lifestyle. Let's say there is a kid that his favorite rapper is a Meek Mills, his favorite rapper is a Rick Ross or a Jim Jones. They could be using that opportunity to change that kid's mindset, to change that kid's life, to turn his life around. They could be using that opportunity to say, you know what? If there's a young kid listening to this, I want you to stop gang banging in the streets. I want you to take life serious. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to be business minded. I want you to stay out of jail. And I want you to be a positive black male to society. They could be pushing that narrative, but no, they'd rather tell these black kids in the inner city, in the neighborhood, they'd rather tell them, hey, give this dude, a couple racks to commit a crime. Give this dude a couple racks to shoot somebody at the let out at the club. Give this dude a rack so he catch somebody at the light. This is what they're rapping about in these raps. And I gotta say, I salute to Dee-1 for calling it out and speaking truth to power. He spoke truth to power in that interview, and I gotta salute him for that. Trey Porter says, looking forward to the documentary movie coming out. A Little Brother has a documentary coming out? I didn't know. Is Knife Wonder gonna be a part of it? Is Knife Wonder going to be a part of it? I hope so. He has to be a part of it, I know, they haven't really worked with him for a while, but he has to be a part of the documentary. I mean, 'cause he's like an intricate part of that whole collective when they first came out. Yeah, I would love to see it. I would love to see it. Yeah, that's Rick Ross's name, William Roberts. Yeah, Mr. Roberts, we patrolled your neighborhood. We made sure the colored people stayed out. These dudes ain't living that life, man. They live in gated communities where the police tell them, the police will let them know, yeah, there's some colored folk that try to get inside the neighborhood. We made sure to send them on their way, Mr. Roberts. Did y'all ever see that video? Anybody that's in the clouds, or if you're watching this in the live stream or the rebroadcast, y'all ever saw that video where it was a young girl? She went to the estates of she went to the house of Rick Ross, and she was talking about, I'm his wife, and she was like roaming around the house. He has a beautiful house, it's a huge house, and she was like roaming around the house. And then the police showed up and they escorted her out of there. They put her in handcuffs and everything. Let's get this black woman up out of here. How does black woman get inside this gated community? That's what they was on that day. And they proceeded to escort her out of there. These dudes live in bougie communities. Well, you need a code to get into their gated communities. They live in nice communities, but they get into that that recording booth. They get into that recording studio, and they ready to tell these black kids, hey, commit this crime, hey, do this, hey, do that. It's crazy. Shout out to Sinclair. I see you checked in. Shout out to Sinclair. Yeah, man, but it's crazy, man. It's crazy. These dudes push absolute poison to the communities at large. Sinclair, we was talking about this Christian rapper. His name is Dee-1. And he pretty much, called out Meek Mills and Rick Ross for the nonsense. He pretty much said, you're I'm going to put the lyric back up. He pretty much called him out. He said, you're preaching about prison reform. You're preaching about, black men having second chances. You're preaching about, black men getting reduced sentence and having a second chance at life. But you're rapping about, violence. You're rapping about, giving somebody money to have them clap. Let me put the lyric back up. Let me put it back up. Hold on. Let me put this lyric back up. Now, this lyric, it bothers me. Because this is the same man, like I said, Meek Mills, he's the same man that wants to meet with the Pennsylvania governor. He's the same man that wants to meet with all the congressional leaders and stuff like that and hold hands in front of a state prison and sing, "We shall overcome. We shall over." That's what he wants to do in terms of prison reform. But when you look at this, when you look at his lyrics, let's pull up the lyric, right? This comes by way of Lyrical Easy. It's on the new song with him and Rick Ross, right? Let's read it together. Deletion on my mind. I'm not going to say that word, but deletion on my mind. I've been up all night. 2 bad chicks trying to F all night. Heard he was in the club, had to duck all night. I told him, catch him at the let out, shoot his truck on sight. This is what he's rapping to the black youth in the communities. But he wants to run off to the governor and sing "We Shall Overcome." That's out. And I want to salute again. I'm going to continue to salute this man, Mr. Dee-1 from Louisiana, for calling him out. He said that he gave out shoes that Meek Mills had that had prison reform on the bottom of it. Meek Mills, I don't know what brand of shoe it was, but he gave out some shoes that had prison reform, I guess, on the soles of them. And he's like kind of confused because he's like, yo, like, you preach about prison reform, but you rapping about things that's going to get dudes thrown in prison. So it was kind of confusing. So he pretty much called out Rick Ross as well. He called out Jim Jones, the Mr. Senior Citizen. I call Jim Jones a senior citizen because the man is half a century old, still claiming Big Billy, still claiming non-trade gangster. I mean, I think after a certain point, when you get a certain age, like, I understand like the West Coast gang politics, because the difference between the West Coast gang politics and East Coast gang politics, like the West Coast gang politics, like, it's generations. Like, this dude's great grandfathers that was like Pyru. Their great grandfather was Pyru, and their grandfather was Pyru, and their father was Pyru. So it's like generations. It's almost like passed down, if you will. But Jim Jones, he ain't from that life. His father wasn't no big blood or nothing like that. There was nobody in his nobody that he was related to that was big blood like that. He was around a bunch of dusty dudes in a poverty-stricken community. He got jumped into something and he's still clinging to it. So it's just like, in my opinion, it's just like, dog, like, at this point in his life, like, the dude is a half a century old. Jim Jones is half a century old. I would think, after you've seen all the gang wars, you've seen, what you've seen with what Blood and non-trade, you saw what that did to the Rikers Island when they was at war with the Latin Kings. You saw what gang violence did to New York City. You see what gang violence is doing to New York City currently, where the city is just at war with itself. Jim Jones is partly responsible for that. Jim Jones popularized gang violence in New York City. There were so many blood sets popping up when Dipset was at its height, and Jim Jones has to take responsibility for that. He was the one pushing that non-trade Big Billy back then. He has to hold responsibility for that. I understand back then when you was younger and you was doing it and you was pushing that narrative, you was younger, I could kind of understand. But at this point in his life, The man is a half a century old. He should be trying to, divert kids away from that. He should be, trying to steer kids away from that narrative. But no, he still wants to, promote that lifestyle. He keep in mind, he's not pushing that lifestyle to his kids. He has interviews where he talks about it. Like, he's like, oh, my kids, they're not like me. Nah, my kids, they're like herbs. He doesn't want that lifestyle for his kids, but it's okay for the other black, youths of the city. It's okay for the, the other Latino, youths of the city. It's okay for them to, to get swallowed by the streets. It's okay for them to, to fall victim of the streets, but it's not okay for his kids. It's crazy. Yeah, Meek Mills, man, Sinclair says talking out both sides of his mouth. I agree. Those who talk the talk, and there's those who walk the walk. I agree. I totally agree. Y'all gotta forgive me. I'm dealing with like a cold tonight, so I'm trying to soldier. But ultimately, Meek Mills is a hypocrite. Jim Jones is a hypocrite. In my opinion, they're all three of them are just, men in a midlife crisis. They're all going through a midlife crisis at this point, at this juncture in their life. Still trying to promote the, the gang activity and I'm big and I'm bad and I'm gangster. These dudes live in affluent communities. Nice. You got to get a code to get in through the door. You know what I mean? Community pools. What else? Neighborhood watches. Come on, man. Like, who are y'all fooling? These dudes ain't been on the block in like over, decades at this point, but they're still pushing that poison to the youth. They think it's okay. And again, I'm keep saying it. Shout out to Dee-1. Shout out to Dee-1 for calling out the hypocrisy in hip hop, because this is a hypocrisy in hip hop. You see the way how other rappers carry themselves. They, these dudes, they still want to, still do the nonsense. It's time to change the narrative. It's time for, rappers to, start taking, what you're rapping about in your lyrics a little bit more serious. Because you may be able to save a young kid's life. That kid that's listening to, a record of yours. I mean, if you know better. Like, come on. Meek Mills, he knows better. Rick Ross, he knows better. Jim Jones, he knows better. These is all dudes in their 40s, 50s. Y'all know better. Give the youth a better chance. Give them a better message. Give them a chance at a better life, a better situation. That's all I'm saying. But I want to thank y'all guys for joining me. I may come back with another live little later on tonight. I'm dealing with a cold. But salute to Sinclair. Salute to Trenches. Salute to Trey Porter. Salute to everybody that came out tonight, man. I'm gonna see you guys on another stream. I'ma holler, man. Y'all have a good night, man. I may do another stream. Y'all may see me like in another hour or two, but y'all have a good night, man. These studies announce me, honestly, put the seat back and I see bodies alone. Mama wanna suck and swallow me.
Welcome to the Check-in Report. If you like the content, subscribe to the channel today.